Costa, it's so great to be here with you for the Nino Invitational. This is such an amazing tournament that has been building up to for over the course of the year, and I'm just really excited to be here in Casa with you. It's going to be great.
It will be great because we've got lovely Rose that's decided to join us, which is absolutely phenomenal, as well as other lovely casters too. But yes, this is going to be the PokeBros Invitational 2024, and there's been a lot of hype that's been building up between all the different community TOs that we have had, which have been supplying us with activity throughout, the off periods of VGC.
Yes, we have the Nino PokeBros Tour. We also had the Himi Burnt Galizzi weeklies, as well as the Tommy Tuesday weekly tours that have all been able to build up to this moment. Everybody that was a winner of one of those events got an invitation to participate here for this weekend. And Costa, this is going to be so exciting because this is going to be Regulation H. And so with that comes, I think, a whole new slate of exciting Pokemon.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, this is sort of the battle between some trainers preferring, legendary format and other trainers preferring non-legendary. This is definitely up the non-legendary tree if you're going to bark up it. And there's a lot of variety with the different archetypes that are quite prevalent and a lot of underused Pokemon previously that are actually getting more of a shine.
Absolutely. What's been kind of your favorite to look at in terms of the meta? I'm just so excited that Sylveon is back. You can absolutely use Sylveon. It's so meta,
yes,
and I'm so grateful.
Honestly, I mean, what I'd probably say, aside from Sylveon love and appreciation, Pixelate being able to amplify those normal type moves, you've got the Hyper Voice dominant meta is what I've observed. You've got the Blood Moon Ursalunas, you've got the Primarinas, you've got the Sylveons, like you mentioned. You've got so much variety. Even Hyper Voice Farigiraf. Why not? There's a lot of singing Pokemon, basically, going around.
Everybody's just so excited. They have to sing for the rooftops that Regulation H is here. Woohoo! But you're right. I think sound-based moves have been such a big part of it, but I also think that when you take a look at some of the other Pokemon that have come back into prominence for Regulation H, you have to look at Pokemon like Annihilate, Archaladon, King Gambit, Golden Go. I think Steel types stay pretty winning in this meta right now.
Yeah. 100%. And I think Golden Go is just one of those Pokemon where it's going to be pretty dominant. It's got such a unique ability. It's got great typing, steel, ghost type, and great signature move as well. Bundle up a choice specs, which has been rising in usage recently. Then you've got an absolute demon of offensive output pressure that you can just apply the moment that it arrives on field.
Yeah, because I think Golden Go is one of those Pokemon you just Terra Steel it immediately and go for the gold with the Make It Rains, and you can absolutely just clean up shop with a couple of those. And I think spread moves overall are super, super impactful, especially when you know that you have a ton of redirection Pokemon like Maushold, Clefairy, those that would really love to draw the attention away from that offensive partner. And so I think that's something where we will be very excited to kind of look at to see how they're going to perform. But Costa, I think we might be just about ready to jump into our very first match of the tournament. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about the players that we have here. Very excited to be jumping into this match.
Oh, 100%. We are going to be, of course, featuring KD Armani versus Diamond 5. At the moment, it is going to be off of KD Armani's feed, and we've got some really interesting teams. Golden Go, Rillaboom, Pelipper, Annihilate, Maushold, and the Palafin. So you've got a bit of a mix here with the Rain and Mouse Ape cores already prevalent.
Yeah, and for Diamond, we do have this Alolan Ninetales plus the Rillaboom, as well as the King Gambit, Como-O, Magmar, and Gastrodon. So speaking of redirection, we have Magmar that is going to potentially be able to provide that alongside the Maushold.
Yeah, and I think it's just a lot of redirection is so important when you've got strategies such as beat up and such. So you want to be able to redirect that away, especially if you've got a flame body user like Magmar. Great sort of threat to be able to nullify this strategy, but then that may be forcing KD Armani to try to go on the immediate offensive in anticipation of that straight from the get-go.
Absolutely. So as we kind of start to look ahead towards our very first game of the day, we can really start to take stock of where the offensive pieces are. I think also when you take a look at this at this Katie Amani team, I kind of wonder if you are going to be bringing the Pelipper and the Palafin. I do think that when you take a look at what we do see for Diamond side of things, you do have the opportunity to bring maybe some of these offensive pieces like the Como actually hitting the field at the very beginning. That's going to
Mm.
actually be an overcoat Como.
Yeah, and Overcoat does have so much great viability in order to sort of avoid any spores that go into that slot. It's great to be able to be placed next to redirection. You've got Iron Defense set up if you want, or in another case, Planning Scales, signature move. You get a sort of Omni boost +1 all across the board, so it's great to be able to go up against. But we've got action straight on the board straight away.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you have Super Fang on this Mousehold, you can just start chunking away at some of these more tanky targets. The Como, a perfect example of that, as it does end up going through the clanging scales. One of the biggest downsides of that is the fact that it does have a defense drop, but because it's a sound-based move, it's actually able to activate that Throat Spray and give it that special attack boost.
Yeah, and we actually see the Magma going on the offensive. Overheat with the double up is able to pick up the KO onto the Mousehold, which is such a pivotal piece to this strategy. Even though the bulk up has been set right now, there is a bit of a proc there of the lefties, and you'll start seeing that KD Armani is going to have to be able to bring in another Pokemon to exercise further offensive threat onto this Magma and try to nullify this combo before it gets a bit out of hand.
Yeah, I think that when you take a look at how much damage it's already taken, especially maybe looking at the bulk up that happened on the Annihilate, going for something like a Drain Punch might be enough to pick up the Como at this point in time. You're also going to be threatening it with the opportunity to go for something like Tailwind, so you know you're always going to outspeed it, but I think that the Pelipper also being able to double into that target just ensures that you're going to be able to get the knockout.
Yeah, and it's sort of a great way to be able to just pick up the pieces where you need to, because like we mentioned, this Kommo is very capable of just running a miss, and Pelipper is at this point where, you know, does have the Focus Sash, is able to most likely be trained to be max speed, max special attack, because at this point, you want to be able to try to amplify as much damage output as you can in this scenario as well. But something to be aware of is a potential Lola Ninetales in the back.
Yes, for sure, because that could just help make sure that this Como can stay around for a long time, but it's actually going to be the Gastrodon. So expecting maybe something like a Weather Ball to come out here from this Pelipper to try to soak it up, but that means that there's no Follow Me to help protect this Como. So it's just going to get knocked out. With that secondary hit, the Hurricane going into the Gastrodon, that's going to be such a nice chunk of damage and gets the confusion as well.
Beautiful play here, just completely anticipating the Gastrodon switch in. Storm Drain is so great, as long as there's a water type move that does get set off on the field, but being able to have that foresight, it's just really put KD in a really nice spot. However, it's not all over for Daimon, because there is that Ninetales. It will be changing the weather, bringing in the snow, as well as any potential for either getting screens up or maybe even going for a freeze Jai, which will be super effective ×4 onto the Pelipper.
That would be a great way to be able to knock it out, but the fact that it still has that Focus Sash intact means that it's going to take 2 hits in order to get there. Gastrodon, though, I think it has a very important piece in the meta right now. The fact that you have the Lola Ninetales setting the snow really does limit what this Pelipper can actually go for. Although I guess I say that, and now Weather Ball would be Ice type, wouldn't it?
It would. It actually would, yeah.
Yeah.
So it sort of like works in favor of KD.
It really does. And so I think that would be something that, like, that poor Gastrodon might not necessarily want to be on the receiving of, and the Aurora Veil that's going to get set here as well is going to make sure that this Gastrodon can stay on the field a little bit longer. But this Annihilate, you talk about something like the Como being able to get out of hand. What about this Annihilate? It's not only taken some damage to help boost up these beat up for these Rage Fists, but now it's got the Tailwind behind it as well, and also the bulk up we saw.
Yeah, this is great sort of support functionality from KD's side alongside that. Oh, unfortunately, the Gastrodon isn't able to actually move. It did hit itself due to the confusion. Most likely trying to go for a sort of supportive move there. Most likely, I think, the Yawn. You want to try to slow down the momentum that this Annihilate has gathered up. And at this point, it's looking quite tough because we did get a bit of a sneak preview of what KD has in the back. That is a Golden Ghost, so it does have a good opportunity to be able to immediately come onto the field.
Yeah, and it is going to be under the Tailwind conditions as well. Even though it doesn't have the choice specs, this one's actually going to be a Citrus Berry variant. You still have the opportunity, once things are really low, to just get in there, click Make It Rain or Shadow Ball, and just really start to clean things up. But the job's not done yet for this Annihilate and this Pelipper. They still are under the Tailwind as well and can go for a bunch of really big options here. Alolan Ninetales is going to leave the field, and so we do get an opportunity to see that Magmar come back in, hoping that that Ninetales was going to be the target of something like a Rage Fist or a Drain Punch.
Oh, maybe trying to fish out for the burn here as well, but it is completely ignored. Gastrodon is going to be the victim of this double up Weather Ball. Is it going to be enough? It is. Critical hit. I don't think that mattered, but the Gastrodon is finally off the field.
Oh, I think that's going to be a really great sign here just to keep things going. We have the Magmar, I think, that can still play a role. Like, with the Follow Me, I think you do have to hope for something like a Flame Body activation. But Ninetales and Magmar, these are the final two Pokemon. And Ninetales, when you look at its offensive options, it is going to just be the Moonblast, Freeze Dry, and Icy Wind. You can't use Icy Wind because you don't want to give a Defiant boost over to this Annihilate, but you could go for something like the Moonblast. That would be super effective.
Oh, but no redirection here. Rage Fist will be targeting down the Ninetales. Not quite enough. But the Hurricane does connect, and it is enough. It does finally quell the Ninetales, leaving this Magma on its own with minimal options, going for the Overheat into the Annihilate. Not quite enough to even guarantee a two-shot there.
No, it's not, and that's going to be so super tough because you also have the special attack drop that comes with it. So I actually think that might be a 4-hit KO. That would be a very difficult, I think, for this Magmar to get through. Even knowing that the Golden Go is in the back, you're not going to be able to clear it up unless you crit it. So this is just looking like a game number 1 here, going over to our player, the Jamaican sensation, by the way, in the actual Limitless tournament, if you guys wanted to go check out the page. But otherwise, I think the in-game name that we have here is different. So
yes,
that's on us.
That is on us. That is worth calling out. Apologies there. But, of course, we do have the Jamaican sensation going ahead and bringing us that Game 1 win in such a triumphant manner. You know, once you had the Tailwind set up and you just essentially had Mouse 8. Oh, I was going to say Mouse 8, wasn't I? Mousehold went down, but it did its job. It was able to redirect and sort of give Annihilate that room to breathe, get a ball cup set up, and then at some point just try to do what it's known to do. Just go ahead and get Rage Fist, pick up KOs left, right, center without dropping as much health.
Absolutely, and I think that's why Annihilate has been looked at as one of the biggest threats in Regulation H, just because it does actually have a good natural amount of bulk, and because of the redirection opportunities, Mousehold also with the safety goggles, it's still also able to go for attacks, but I think just in general, it's so safe to have a redirection option that isn't just a Moongus, because of the safety goggles going around, all of the grass types as well, so certainly one way to be able to keep this Annihilate safe. But Costa, we are about to get into this game number 2, and it's going to be a run back as we take a look at Diamond bringing back out this Magmar and the Komao, but it's the Golden Go switch up here from Katie Amani that's going to make a difference.
Ooh, and we saw that Mousehold previously didn't go for Follow Me, it just went for the Super Fang, but it still was sort of a point of contention for the redirection, even if it didn't go for it. But in this case, you will most likely want to go for it. It's staring down a Magmar and a Komao. It's great a lead going into this Komao, as once you get a nasty plot set up, you could start really out damaging it to the point and maybe forcing the terrestrialization as well.
It's also going to resist a lot of this steel type damage as a steel type, and you also can't use something like Aura Sphere because you're a ghost type. So I think this Golden Go is very uniquely positioned to be in front of this Komao as well, just because of its natural typing. But you're just not going to want to take too much damage regardless. You're going to keep this Golden Go safe. It's going to be Annihilate now that's going to hit the field instead.
Oh, this might be a bait, trying to go for the immediate beat up on the side, and it is indeed well played here, anticipating most likely a double up into the Mousehold here. Does get all 4 hits off, so this is going to be dealing an incredible amount of damage, most likely about the 200-250 base power range, as Clanging Scales will now get set up on Komao's side.
Yes, and that's going to make sure that this offensive output is going to be even greater. You have the Throat Spray after that. That's going to be able to boost up that special attack even further. But you do have to take a little bit of the damage first. It's going to be Overheat, though, into the Magmar. So it was a bait. Leaving that Golden Goat on the
Oh,
field could have spelled disaster, as it's going to be the Annihilate that tanks that instead. What a great conditioning on this turn 1.
yeah, well played to be able to essentially get an additional further boost to that Rage Fist because of the overheat as well. Probably maxing out at around 300 base power right now. You've still got Mousehold on the field, which does have that Friend Guard ability, as well as redirection. So this is really what KD was looking for with that turn 1 bait.
Absolutely. And now with this Mousehold going for this Ghost Terror typing, it's also going to be able to stay safe from something like the Aura Sphere. That's going to be shut off now. And even the Magmar being at that lower special attack means that even taking something like an Overheat is not necessarily going to be a bad thing. But Magmar finally going for Follow Me, hoping it's going to be able to actually redirect away this attack. And that's the
Oh,
here. It was a perfect call with the Terra.
well played from KD, being able to initially use the terrestrialization when was most appropriate. Magma will be going down. Do we see if there's any sort of connect with the flame body? No, there is not. And at this point, the Annihilate Mousehold combination is running rampant.
I think you're just going to be able to get knockout after knockout. And with this Rage Fist being as boosted up as it is, this Aurora Veil might not necessarily have the same type of impact as you would hope it to have at this point in the matchup. Mousehold is also still full health, so Friend Guard very active for this Annihilate. And it's going to just go for Follow Me again to make sure this Annihilate can get even more damage off.
Yeah, and we're most likely going to be seeing the clanging scales coming out right now from the Chroma-O. Makes most sense. You got spread damage potential. Alolan Ninetales, however, does not have spread aside from Icy Wind as an option. Does go for the Moonblast, picks up the KO. Finally, onto this Mousehold. However, we have the scenario that this Annihilate is going to be free to go for the Rage Fist, pick up yet another KO. Now, Ninetales being the victim.
Yeah, it's just a KO after KO for this Annihilate. It's even getting the leftovers healing as well, so even though the Friend Guard is now gone because the Mousehold is off the table, you get a chance to come in with this Pelipper, go for a Protect even on this Annihilate, knowing that you are slower than this Como, and get a Tailwind set up here with the Focus Sash on this Pelipper.
Exactly, and you've already changed the weather as well. It doesn't come to any sort of importance right now. It's more so to a negative for the Pelipper, but like you correctly identified there, Rose, it's the fact that the Focus Sash will allow this Pelipper to freely get that Tailwind off. Annihilate just needs to sit tight in this scenario because there is no direct way for this Gastrodon to outspeed the Pelipper and for the Pelipper to go down prior to it.
Ooh, but we are going to see a terrestrialization of this Como. It's going to end up getting a Steel type. It is weak now to the Drain Punch, but you know you're going to be knocked out anyway. As the Annihilate goes to protect this Como, isn't necessarily going to be able to get the knockout onto the Annihilate, but you still have the opportunity here to go for the Kalangar's Soul and just be able to get another boost. But it's going to be all for naught here, I think, as we take a look at what's going to happen on the rest of this turn.
Yeah, and it is quite an intriguing play to go for. You want to be able to bring yourself up to the point to at least match or force a speed tie interaction, or you're not 100% sure on the speed ties between and the train between both the Annihilate and the Como-O. But we do have the Muddy Water coming out. It will connect, break the Focus Sash on the Pelipper. But most crucially right now, we're going to have to see which one is going to be faster, the Como-O or the Annihilate, as Tailwind has been sort of matched with the second Clangor Assault.
It has. That's a good point. And so one way that you can certainly offset that Tailwind, and I think that was really, really smart of Diminutive to actually go for. Because as you said, you're right. And I think now when you look at that difference, I think, yeah, we are going to have to see which one is faster. I forgot that Clangor's Soul was already active at the beginning of this game.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those interactions where you feel like, oh, okay, it's probably just going to be just a one-time thing. But it's like, no, you can actually go for it again as long as you've got enough HP to be able to allow it to get activated. But at this point, it is going to be quite crucial. Rage Fist will most likely pick up the KO, but can this annihilate outspeed? We will not find out yet again this turn as the Protect from the Como has been chosen.
No, we will not find that out, unfortunately. So, it's going to be just an opportunity to double into that Pokeball, but the Protect is going to buy some really valuable time here for Diminutive to get something done as the Earth Power into the Annihilate. It's just going to do a little bit of damage, but there's a chance for a drop. It's not going to get it. So this Annihilate, not going to get a Defiant boost from that attack.
It's such a well thought out strategy there. Maybe not wanting to risk the chance because most likely the Como O has been sort of built to have even more bulk and because of its natural speed tiering being a bit lower. But the Gastrodon, you had either options of going for the Yawn or the Earth Power crit. Earth Power crit would have guaranteed it. The Yawn would have forced your Como O to have to go for a second subsequent Protect in the following turn. So a bit tough right now. And at this point, we need Daimon to try to get that second Protect if they want to have hopes on trying to force a game 3.
So it comes down to these speed interactions. I feel like we did end up seeing it this at the beginning of the game, but it's early for me, so I apologize. But it's a double Protect here from the Como-O. It's buying another opportunity for this Gastrodon to get another attack. And so the Rage Fist into the Como-O just is going to be completely negated here.
Oh my god, does this slug have enough in the fuel tank to be able to quell this very rage-induced ape? Right now, actually, it doesn't even go for Earth Power. It goes for the Muddy Water to be able to connect. Thanks to the boosted rain being on the field, it will finally bring it down, forcing KD to their final 2 Pokemon.
And now I think you take a look at Golden Go with something like a Citrus Berry usually being on the tankier end. So not necessarily fully invested in speed, which might give this Como-O a fighting chance. But regardless, you know with the Golden Go after it has already... with the Maushold already using the Terastallization, this Golden Go can't actually tear it away from its weakness to Earth Power. And look at how much this is going to tank the Shadow Ball. The Como-O doesn't even get knocked out to the Hurricane. That is wild.
That is so wild! Claiming Scales will be picking up the Pelipper, and this just needs to be an Earth Power into the Golden Go slot from that range. Super effective. It should be able to pick up. We know that this Golden Go is quite bulky, however. Will it be able to survive? It does not! And we've got a Game 3 on the field.
Wow, that was the double Protect there absolutely sealed the deal. Even after the first one, knowing that you were able to protect yourself from a double target gave this Gastrodon so much room to breathe. And so having the Earth Power, I think also having Muddy Water in the rain was a fantastic choice to have. All of that boosted damage, as you were saying, just to make sure you could assure the knockout onto the Annihilate. Still a risky call, though. There is a 20% chance for Earth Power to drop defensive stats, and so that's why I was cringing a little bit because I wasn't sure if you would have actually given over a boost.
Yeah, no, it's a very fair point, but at that point, you had been hit so many times. If you're that Annihilate, it was just gonna go ahead and just pick off. As long as it could move, it will get a KO. I think that was near guaranteed. But it's like you said, going for the risks there from Daimon's side, going for the double protects, understanding your win conditions, having to say, right, I just want to go for the Muddy Water. I know it's less accurate, but with the additional damage multiplier of the rain being on the field, it'll allow me to guarantee the KO, even though at a higher risk. Because Earth Power, it could have been very close. But, you know, Daimon recognized the win condition, went for it, and that's how we got a Game 3.
Yes, I do wonder, though, had that Golden Go been able to Terra to the Dragon type, if it would be able to survive an Earth Power. Like, obviously taking a look at the Como-O damage, that Clangor Soul was going to do, or that Clanging Scales was going to do a ton of damage regardless into the Golden Go, but maybe if you're able to tear away from the weakness, you do have a little bit of a different end game there. But let's get back into this match. Game number 3, it's going to be a run back of the Magmar and the Como-O, and no funny business this time around here. It's not going to be a switch, it's just going to be the Annihilate straight away as we look at KD Amarni's side.
Yeah, and the follow me to boot as well from the Magmar this time around. No overheat or trying to go on the offensive straight away. Super Fang will be targeting into that slot, lowering its HP output, but there's not going to be a follow-up attack from this Annihilate, just going to be another bulk up, as we're anticipating this to also be a setup from the Como-O with that Clangor Soul, bringing the Omni Boost +1 all way rounds.
And just in case people missed that speed interaction in game number 2, like we potentially did, it was the Annihilate that ended up getting the bulk up first before we ended up seeing this Como-O use its setup move. But now that you do have that speed boost, it will be the Como-O that is faster on this next turn.
Yeah, that is definitely worth clarifying, because it just goes to show that Daimon did recognize that being the case, and hence why they opted to go for that double protect scenario. But we got another follow me on the field.
We do have a follow me, which is going to make sure that this Como-O gets an enormous amount of damage.
Whoa.
But with the beat up going into the Magmar instead of this Annihilate, that is not going to feel very good. That is going to be several hits into this Magmar. This Mousehold is not going to end up getting burned, though, by the Flame Body, so that is something to be worth while to note. But the Annihilate that is not the target that you would want this burn to go into.
No, it very much isn't. I was starting to wonder there, Rose. Does this Magmar even have Flame Body? Because there have been so many physical contact interactions we've seen across the span of all these 3 games where it hasn't procced even once, but it's procced right now when it mattered, and that is why Magmar is such a valuable Pokemon to be able to bring to the field according to your team archetype. But in this case, really paying dividends, forcing this Annihilate's damage output to be halved right now, even after that +1 boost via the bulk up.
Wow, I mean, it is a 30% chance to burn. And so I think you're right. Like, we should have seen one at some point in this game already. But in such a critical moment in this game number 3, it does not feel good to be that Annihilate right now. You still have an opportunity here to go for a Terra onto what we see the Golden Goat in the bag. It's going to be the same 4 Pokemon again here from KD Armani. But when you look at the Ninetales and the Como-O's got the setup. It is the fastest thing on the field right now. And Ninetales can just set up the Aurora Veil, and even Drain Punch isn't going to do enough here if this Como-O decides to Terrasilize.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why that burn is so important, because you're able to have a bit more breathing room from your side of the field if you're Diamond, as we've got the Mousehold going for the Protect. Wants to try to keep its position on the field in order to provide that Friend Guard buff to its partner Pokemon, especially it being the Golden Go having the Steel type. It resists that claiming scales so well, as well as the Moonblast.
Ooh, but it is going to be a critical hit. Otherwise, yeah, it would have just done a little sliver of damage to that Golden Go, but that Friend Guard is certainly something that is going to help keep that Golden Go much safer. But it's still slow, so you have to find a way to actually be able to potentially get this Pelipper in and go for a Tailwind. Even this Golden Go would love to go for setup here, looking at Nasty Plot as an option.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think in this scenario, you probably want to try to let go of the Mousehold. Maybe go for a Protect if you did a Golden Go, to be able to bring that Pelipper in at a slot. But once again, the Ninetales on the other side of the field is going to be able to outspeed, and in combination with a Clanging Scales, most likely pick up a KO onto the Pelipper. So KD really has to try to find a way to outmaneuver their opponent right now. But we actually have the Gastrodon switching in, which slows things down a bit.
It really does, and it's going to be able to tank some of these hits quite well. But as we do see this Terrasalization onto the Como-O, you talk about the resist on the Golden Go. Well, what about the Como-O being able to resist something like the Make It Rain? That is something that's worthwhile to point out. But this Mousehold, unfortunately, not going to be able to get the double protect, so it's going to go down on this turn as we see that. Oh, no, it's not. Sorry, Clangorous Skills doesn't actually do damage. You have Clangorous Scales and then Clanging Soul. Yes, I get a little confused sometimes when I see those words pop up. But because it's going for setup, this Golden Go actually does have an opportunity to go for the Nasty Plot.
Yeah, exactly. There is a lot of soul in those scales, and we've seen now Omni Boost +2 at this point just means that, you know, this is a really big powerhouse that you need to try to neuter as best as possible. Nasty Plot is a good way to do it, but once again, you are being outsped.
You are going to be outsped, but I love this play coming out from KD. Unfortunately, the Gastrodon going for the Protect does leave this mouse hold without the option to actually go for the Super Fang. But because of Gastrodon's natural bulk, you would love to have that Super Fang to just get it to half HP, and then you would have an opportunity to potentially knock it out with something like the Make It Rain at the +2.
Yeah, and in this situation, it's actually quite precarious for Daimon, believe it or not, because the Golden Go will most likely be able to survive a +2 clanging scales, and the Gastrodon will be able to pick up the KO onto the Golden Go following the clanging scales. So it's just more so being able to get rid of the Coma O, which I think is KD's main game plan in this game 3 to try to seal off the set.
Ooh, well, the mouse hold is going to be able to keep itself safe once more, so the friend guard has to be able to come in clutch again. We saw how much damage this Golden Goat took from that clinging scales before, and so when we see it go off again with friend guard still active, it's still going to allow this Golden Goat to take that.
Ooh.
And that means it has an opportunity to actually use its Citrus Berry. We did not get a chance to see that activate in our previous games, and so that's a little bit of extra HP that this Golden Goat gets to work with. This Komao with the Shadow Ball is certainly going to be felt on this turn, and that is a huge threat now out of the way for KD.
It really is, but right now, is the Gastrodon strong enough, the tough little slug, to be able to pick up this Golden Go from that range with Friend Guard in combination? It is! And we've got a huge offensive threat from KD's side also being knocked off the field, but I feel like the exchange was definitely worth it. The fact that you had a +2 Omni boost Chroma O that was just running amok.
It was certainly tough to deal with, but now when you look at this Annihilate returning to the field, even though it does have the burn, you're still in a much better position. This Annihilate, unfortunately, can't go for Terastallization, though. Even though it is weak to the Moon Boss, it is a Dragon Terra type, so you don't want to be Terastallizing away from that anyway. But it would feel better to be able to go for something like that if the Ninetales is out of the way.
Yeah, and I think that's a very valid point, because at this point, if you are Diamond, you're going to have to try to rely a bit more on this Ninetales. You've got the tools to be able to win this one out, especially because of that burn status on the Annihilate, which really has harmed KD's probabilities of being able to win this set out. But you've got to be able to try to capitalize off of it. Gastrodon, it's so bulky, it's going to stay on the field, but it's just going to go for offensive attacks, so there could be a reliance on a super fine miss here.
Oh, look at the friend guard. Able to keep this Annihilate up, but the beat up going into the Annihilate is going to just do a little bit of that damage. But the fact that you still have an opportunity to go for the Rage Fist here, even with the 2 stacks, this Gastrodon gets brought to below half with the Muddy Water able to connect onto both targets, though. That is going to be the Annihilate and the mouse hold down. That is going to leave KD with just 1 Pokemon left.
Yeah, and well played from Daimon there. Even though the Chroma O has been sort of failed in that scenario, you've got the overwhelming amount of bulk from this Gastrodon and just the access to Muddy Water to be able to just go ahead and sweep up this game. As long as you connect, that is the most important thing there. So Gastrodon was able to do that to an astonishing level.
Absolutely, but I love this. Saving the Terastallization for this Pelipper. You've got the Stellar Terra, so you know that you're going to have that amplified damage for a Weather Ball as well as a Hurricane. As we see that Stellar Terra go off, hopefully you're also going to be able to use this Focus Sash and actually keep yourself safe from some of these attacks. I'm so excited to see what's going to happen, but the Freeze Dry is still going to be ultra effective into this Pelipper, bringing it down to Sash.
It will be. So I think KD's game plan right now is to just keep on missing Muddy Waters. I think that is what they have to do. Going for the Hurricane into the Ninetales slot with the Stellar Boost will most likely not pick up the KO. Yeah, guarantees the 2-hit KO, but Gastrodon. Well played from Diamond. Not even going for the Muddy Water, just wanting to guarantee that Yawn in order to be able to give themselves more outs in the subsequent turns to pick up this game 3.
Yes, and so with that, it's going to just lock up the game, lock in the forfeit, and KD Armani is going to go down here to Diamond, who is able to take our first set of the day.
And well played as well from both of these trainers. The amount of back and forths that we had is sort of evident to the high level of play that we're able to observe there, and that this invitational tournament does have. I think they both had very similar game plans with the team archetypes that they had. Even though they had different pieces, they still applied a protect the king or queen sort of strategy to be able to get that main sweeper set up. And it just seems like the Komo was able to just outpace, quite literally speed-wise as well, the offensive damage output versus the Annihilate, which unfortunately did get burned, which was a big factor there.
Yes, I think if that Annihilate isn't burned, this game looks very, very different, because you would be able to just kind of keep getting a couple of Drain Punch recoveries. You also just have the Rage Fist, even with the 2 stacks from the mouse hold at the very end. I think you're still doing an enormous amount of damage, and unfortunately that burn did end up being a factor in this game.
Yeah. It really did, but that's sort of the job, the role of Magmar, right? Like, that's why you go for Magmar. You've got great typing to be able to redirect any sort of offensive Rillabooms that come into play, any sort of pivot actions going with U-turns. You've got the Flame Body potential with the redirection and Eviolite, which just really pays dividends, as well as Clear Smod, which is a champion unsaid there for the Dondozo matchup, so I do really like that there. Well.
Yeah, I think that's a really underrated, well, I guess I would say underrated move, but only because we haven't seen it in a long time. But it's so good. I think even for something like the Palafin, I think you can also help out with that. That was an option on KD Amarni's team. And then you also just have so many other options with like other boosts. Nasty plot, well, can't use it into a Golden Go, but you get my point. There's a lot of setup moves right now, and it's still very effective.
Well, exactly. And I think it's just sort of being able to understand, what sort of strategy you need to try to employ when you've got the opponent running very similar board state reliant strategies with the redirection and the setup and stuff. But no, huge props to both our trainers. Obviously, this has just been round 1 of 6 rounds for the Swiss phase of this invitational tournament. So there's quite enough room for KD to be able to try to bring this one back as well, to try to go for top cut.
Yes, you need a X2 record today in order to make it forward. And so a lot more action for Pokemon ahead of us. Really excited to see some of the names on this list too. Maybe Costa, we can go over a couple of those. Both Diminutive as well as the Jamaican Sensation, our 2 players at the very beginning, actually earned their invites from playing in November and December. Still haven't been able to play in a good number of tournaments since then, but it is worth noting that they were some of the very first participants to actually lock in an invitation here.
Yeah, and I think being able to sort of bring these cool strategies as well. We've seen a lot of different archetypes on the rise. It seemed like they were quite comfortable in order to sort of understand their lines clearly. And they definitely brought us a really strong start to this tournament with this round 1.
Maybe a couple of other players people will be interested in seeing. We've got Charisma Check, we have Aura Rayquaza, Z Banded, Joe UX9, we've Sableye VGC, another streamer, Sempra. There's so many amazing players, and there's also a ton of European players in this list, Costa.
Yeah, I've spotted Len's name at the bottom there. Mr. Trick Room himself.
Our last invitation.
Yeah, exactly, at our last tournament. So that was just at the end of August, at the 28th, with a Himi Burnt Glizzy tour, which had 178 people attending, players, which is absolutely insane with these online tournaments. And he was able to go ahead once again with the Trick Room archetype. And I know that he's going to most likely be rocking that same team, which does feature a Hisuian Zoroark, which has been all the craze nowadays.
I'm so excited if we get a chance to actually see that. I love that Pokemon. I think you can really do some silly things with it. And it's so funny to see something that you do not expect to be able to use, like Hyper Voice, actually hit the field. And then you just get absolutely mowed over with that Pokemon. I think that's always been really fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to watch as a spectator or as the trainer imploring that strategy, but not on the receiving end as much, because you're like, oh, wait, why is this Gallade picking up a KO on both of my Ursaluna Blood Moon and Farigarath with a choice specs, hyper voice stuff. It's like, once again, hyper voice coming through. But yeah, regardless, it's a really niche pick that I am expecting to see a lot with the upcoming regionals we've got.
I think so as well. I wonder if there may be some. What do you have as your sleeper picks for Regulation Age? Because I think there is been a lot of talk about sort of the big ones. Our Chaladon, Kingambit, Golden Go, a lot of Pokemon that we have seen. Annihilate, I think, is another one that has certainly had a lot of attention towards it. But Hisuian and Zoroark, I think the Hisuian Pokemon in general are a theme of Pokemon we have to talk about as being huge threats in Regulation Age.
Oh, 100%. I mean, even Hisuian Decidueye, for example, has been really finding a good place in the meta because of its scrappy ability, its signature moves as well, which sort of has like 3 secondary effects, which is absolutely bonkers. And don't get me started, I don't know how that's possible. But it's just more so that, like you said, Hisuian Pokemon really rising up. The most we've ever seen ever since this Scarlet and Violet gen era. So it is really allowing more room for the Pokemon to be able to be further explored. So I'm super hyped for it.
Yeah, triple arrows, actually just nuts.
It blows my mind.
Yeah, it has an increased critical hit ratio. It's 3 hits each with an increased critical hit ratio. It also has a 50% chance of lowering the target's defense by 1 stage and a 30% chance of actually causing a flinch. So that is a lot of different things that could come into play, and that could be everything. You could just get hit by all 3 of those things because of the triple attack.
Well, exactly. It's like each effect for each arrow, I guess. But like, it's just, it's sort of those signature moves, which we haven't seen as much. Like, for example, Ceaseless Edge. On the other hand, we've got Hisuian Samurott able to set spikes as long as you connect with the Dark type move, Signature. And it's like 70 base power or something. So, like, there's a lot more room for exploration. And I don't doubt there will be more of a niche that will be coming up. But for me personally, I would say I want to see more of Hisuian Decidueye. There's a lot of room for this Pokemon to really succeed.
And Hisuian Typhlosion, I think that's another Pokemon that is on a ton of people's radars, especially after seeing the waves that it has made at some of the other tournaments that have been happening over the course of the weekend. And it's just so strong. If you have a Sun team, you can do so much damage. You have Overheat, you have Heat Wave, Eruption if you're at full health is doing just a nasty amount. And so I think that is also something that everyone's looking at is just a really great fire type to slot into a team.
It really is, because it's just so easy to just slap it onto the team as well, right? Just get a Sunny Day Pranks the user and you're all sorted. Nothing else needed. But with that being said, of course, we could go ahead and speculate all day, but we do have the tournament and round 2 coming up. So what we're going to go ahead and do is cut to a short break, and we'll be right back with some more Invitational PokeBros action.